Welcome to Blossoming Brains, the podcast where we use scientific research to support lifelong learning. I'm your host, Dr. Vicki Draeger. I'm a mother of 5, and I've spent over 30 years in the classroom, from the bright eyes of preschoolers discovering the world for the very first time, all the way to graduate students working on their master's degrees. Last night, I was late for a very important meeting. The building kept shifting its layout. The hallways stretched on forever, and no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't find the right room. When I finally burst through a door, I discovered the meeting was being held underwater, and everyone was wearing hats made out of fruit. And no one thought this was strange, not even me. I woke up with my heart pounding, completely disoriented, wondering what on earth had just happened in my own head. Sound familiar? Maybe your version involves flying over your childhood neighborhood, or discovering you can suddenly speak a language you've never learned, or finding yourself in a conversation with someone who passed away years ago, and in the dream, it feels completely and utterly real. Here's a question I want you to sit with for just a moment. What if I told you that every single night, while you're peacefully tucked into your bed, your brain enters a state that scientists are now comparing to psychosis? That the very same brain that helps you navigate traffic, manage your schedule, and make rational decisions all day long voluntarily switches off its logic systems and enters a world of hallucinations, emotional chaos, and impossible realities. Not just occasionally, but every single night. And here's the kicker. This isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature, a beautifully designed, scientifically fascinating feature that may be essential to your mental health, your emotional well-being, and even your curiosity and creativity. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most mysterious and universal experiences that every single human being on this planet shares: the world of dreams. This episode is called The Dreaming Brain: Why We Go Insane Every Night. And by the time we're done, I promise you, you will never look at your dreams the same way again. We're going to explore the neuroscience of what actually happens in your brain while you dream. We're going to talk about why your dreams are so bizarre and illogical, and why that bizarreness is actually connected to some very serious science about the human mind. We'll look at what your dreams might be doing for you, and we'll even touch on what happens when the dreaming brain goes wrong. So, grab your tea or coffee, get comfortable, and let's go on a journey into the sleeping and dreaming mind. Let's start at the beginning. What actually happens when you fall asleep? Most people think of sleep as a simple off switch. You close your eyes, the lights go out, and 8 hours later you wake up refreshed. But sleep is anything but passive. Your brain is extraordinarily busy while you sleep, cycling through a series of distinct stages, each with its own unique purpose. Think of sleep like a washing machine cycle. There's the pre-wash, the main wash, the rinse, and the spin. Each stage does something different, and you need all of them for the clothes to come out clean. Skip a cycle, and something important gets left undone. As I said last week, scientists divide sleep into 2 main categories: non-REM, rapid eye movement, sleep, which we call NREM, and REM sleep. Now, within NREM sleep, there are 3 distinct stages. Stage 1, NREM, is the lightest sleep, that drowsy, drifting feeling you get just after you close your eyes. Your muscles relax, your brain waves slow down, and you might experience those sudden jerks or twitches called hypnic jerks that sometimes startle you awake. This stage lasts only a few minutes. Then there's stage 2 of NREM, which takes you deeper. Your heart rate slows, your body temperature drops, and your brain begins producing bursts of activity called sleep spindles. These spindles are thought to be important for consolidating memories. Essentially, your brain is filing away the experiences of the day. Stage 3 of NREM sleep is deep, slow wave sleep. This is the most physically restorative stage. Your body releases growth hormone, repairs tissues, builds muscle, and strengthens the immune system. This is the sleep that leaves you feeling physically refreshed. If someone tries to wake you during stage 3, you'll be groggy and disoriented. What I said last week, it's a phenomenon known as sleep inertia. And then after cycling through those NREM stages, your brain does something remarkable. It shifts into REM sleep. The first REM cycle usually begins about 90 minutes after you fall asleep and lasts only about 10 minutes. But here's the fascinating part. As the night goes on, each successive REM cycle gets longer. By the time you're in your 4th or 5th cycle, REM periods can last up to 60 minutes. This is why your most vivid, most memorable, most emotionally rich dreams tend to happen just before you wake up. And these are the dreams that you're most likely to remember. Over the course of a full night's sleep, the average person spends about 2 hours in REM sleep and has somewhere between 4 and 6 separate dream episodes. That's a remarkable amount of time spent in a world of your own brain's creation. Now, here's what makes REM sleep so extraordinary. If you were to look at a brain scan of someone in REM sleep, you would see something surprising. Their brain activity looks almost identical to their brain when they're wide awake. The brain is humming with energy. Neurons are firing, the eyes are darting back and forth beneath the eyelids. That's where the rapid eye movement name comes from. And yet the person is completely asleep. But it's not just that the brain is active. It's which parts of the brain are active and which parts are not that tell the real story. I want to introduce you to some of the key players in the dreaming brain. Think of your brain as a large, complex organization, a company. During your waking hours, this company runs with a clear hierarchy. The CEO is in charge, the departments are communicating, and everyone is following the rules. But during REM sleep, the CEO goes home. And what happens next is extraordinary. The prefrontal cortex is our CEO. It sits right behind your forehead, and it is the seat of what scientists call our executive function. This is the part of your brain responsible for logic, critical thinking, planning, impulse control, and most importantly, reality testing, the ability to distinguish between what is real and what is not. During REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, particularly the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, becomes significantly less active. It essentially powers down. Neurologists call this state hypoactivation. And when the CEO goes home, the rest of the company doesn't just sit quietly at their desks. Oh, no, indeed. They throw a party. The amygdala is one of the most enthusiastic partygoers. This small almond-shaped structure deep in the brain is your emotional command center. It processes fear, excitement, anger, and joy. During REM sleep, the amygdala is highly active, sometimes even more active than when you're awake. This is why dreams are so emotionally intense. The fear, the terror in a nightmare isn't a pale shadow of real fear. To your amygdala, it is completely real, which is why we may wake up screaming. The joy in a beautiful dream is genuine joy. The grief you feel when you dream about a lost loved one is genuine grief. The hippocampus is also busy during REM sleep. This seahorse-shaped structure is your brain's memory center, responsible for forming and retrieving memories. During dreaming, the hippocampus is actively replaying and processing memories from your waking life, which is why your dreams are often populated with familiar people, places, and experiences, sometimes jumbled together in unexpected combinations. The visual cortex, the part of your brain that processes what you see, is highly active during REM sleep, generating the vivid imagery of your dreams, even though your eyes are closed and there is no visual input from the outside world. Your brain is quite literally creating pictures from nothing. And then there's the brainstem, the ancient, primitive part of our brain that controls basic biological functions like breathing and heart rate. During REM sleep, the brainstem is doing something fascinating. It is sending a signal to your spinal cord to temporarily paralyze your voluntary muscles. This state is called muscle atonia, and it's one of the most elegant safety mechanisms in the human body. Think about what you dream about. You run, you fight, you fall, you fly. If your body were free to move during these dreams, you'd be thrashing around in bed every night, potentially injuring yourself and anyone sleeping near you. Muscle atonia is your brain's way of saying, you can experience it all, but you cannot act on it. Sometimes people do thrash around a bit, and sometimes people sleepwalk. When this system fails, when the brainstem doesn't properly send the paralysis signal, there is a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder. People with this condition physically act out their dreams. They kick, punch, shout, and sometimes even get out of bed. It can be dangerously genuine, and it's a powerful demonstration of just how real the brain's dream experience can be. On the flip side, you may have experienced sleep paralysis. That terrifying moment when you wake up but your body is still paralyzed, and you may even experience hallucinations. This happens when you become conscious before the muscle atonia has fully lifted. Many of the historical accounts of demons sitting on the chest or supernatural visitations in the night are almost certainly descriptions of sleep paralysis. But now, let's talk about the chemistry of dreaming. Because what's happening in your brain during REM sleep isn't just about which regions are active or inactive. It's also about a dramatic shift in the chemical environment of your brain. Think of your brain's neurotransmitters as the ingredients in a recipe. During your waking hours, you have a carefully balanced blend of chemicals that keeps you alert, rational, emotionally stable, and able to form memories. But during REM sleep, someone changes the recipe dramatically. Let's look at serotonin, the transmitter most associated with mood stability, emotional regulation, and a sense of well-being. Serotonin drops to a very low level during REM sleep. Serotonin is part of what keeps us grounded and rational. When it's low, the emotional intensity of our experiences can skyrocket. Then there's norepinephrine, also known as noradrenaline. It's another neurotransmitter that nearly disappears during REM sleep. Norepinephrine is crucial for attention, alertness, and critically for memory formation. This is a major reason why we forget most of our dreams almost immediately upon waking. With that norepinephrine, the brain essentially forgets to hit the record button on your dream experiences. You might have a vivid, emotionally powerful dream, but within minutes of waking, it is dissolved like morning mist. Meanwhile, acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter associated with brain activation, attention, and the generation of vivid sensory experiences, is at high levels during REM sleep. Acetylcholine is a major driver in the REM state itself, and it's thought to be responsible for the hallucinatory, vivid quality of our dreams. Here is the remarkable thing about this chemical profile. It is strikingly similar to the neurochemical environment seen in certain states of psychosis. In conditions like schizophrenia, researchers have observed a similar pattern. The brain chemistry of dreaming and the brain chemistry of certain psychotic states have significant overlaps. This is not a coincidence, and it brings us to the most mind-blowing part of today's discussion. The bizarre, illogical quality of a normal person's dreams closely resembles the bizarre, illogical quality of a schizophrenic person's waking thoughts. Let me say that again because it's worth sitting with. When you dream, your brain is producing a quality of thinking that is comparable to what someone with schizophrenia experiences while they are awake. Every night, this happens in every one of us. Now, it's important to note that this doesn't mean that dreaming is dangerous or that dreamers are mentally ill. It means that the brain has a remarkable capacity to enter a state of altered consciousness, and that this state shares deep structural and chemical similarities with certain forms of psychosis. The difference, of course, is that for most of us, this state is temporary, controlled, and we wake up from it. Sadly, for someone with a psychotic disorder, this state can be persistent and overwhelming. The key to understanding why this happens comes back to our CEO, the prefrontal cortex. In both dreaming and in psychosis, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is underactive. This is the region responsible for reality testing, the ability to recognize that an experience is internally generated rather than externally real. When this region is offline, the brain loses its ability to distinguish between what is real and what is not. In dreaming, this is why we accept impossible scenarios without question. In psychosis, the same failure of reality testing underlies hallucinations and delusions. There's a wonderful analogy here. Imagine you're watching a movie. When you're fully aware that you're in a cinema, you can enjoy the film while knowing it's not real, like watching Alien. But what if you forgot you were in a cinema? What if the part of your brain that maintains that awareness went offline? You would experience the movie as reality, terrifying. Or perhaps a different movie, it might be joyful. Or confusing, whatever the case may be. That is, in essence, what happens during dreaming. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that knows you're in the cinema, goes dark, and the movie becomes your reality. So, if the prefrontal cortex is offline and the brain is in a state of chemical and neurological upheaval, where do the actual stories of our dreams come from? This is where one of the most influential theories in dream science comes in. In 1977, Harvard psychiatrists Alan Hobson and Robert McCarley proposed what they called the activation synthesis theory of dreaming. My husband John, who had an opportunity to meet and talk with Dr. Hobson, described him as one of the most intelligent human beings he's ever met. Here's the core idea of Hobson and McCarley's research-based theory. They say that during REM sleep, the brainstem generates a series of random electrical signals. These signals are not organized or meaningful. They're a bit like static on a radio, or like someone randomly pressing keys on a piano. These random signals activate various parts of the cortex, the visual areas, the emotional areas, the memory areas. Now here's where it gets especially interesting. Your cortex, the thinking, story-making part of your brain, receives these random signals and does what it always does. It tries to make sense of them. It tries to find a pattern, a narrative. a story. It synthesizes the random input into something coherent, or at least semi-coherent. Think of it like this. Imagine you handed a novelist a pile of random photographs. A red shoe, a mountain, a crying child, a broken clock, a laughing stranger. The novelist's job is to weave these into a story. The story might be strange. It might not entirely make sense, but the novelists will do their best to connect the dots. That is essentially what your cortex is doing every night during REM sleep. As Hobson himself put it, the brain is so inexorably bent upon the quest for meaning that it attributes and even creates meaning when there is little or none in the data. This theory has been controversial when it was first proposed, particularly among psychotherapists who believed that dreams were rich with symbolic meaning. And to be fair, the activation synthesis theory doesn't say that dreams are meaningless. What it says is that the form of dreams, their bizarre, fragmented, illogical quality, is a product of random neural activation. But the content, the specific images, people, and emotions that appear, the content is drawn from your own memories, experiences, and emotional concerns. So while the structure might be random, the material is deeply personal, which I think we've all experienced. This brings us to one of the most debated questions of all of sleep science. What are dreams actually for? If we spend 2 hours every night in this bizarre, psychosis-like state, there must be a reason. Evolution doesn't tend to keep things around that serve no purpose. So there are several compelling theories, and I want to walk you through the most fascinating ones. The first is the memory consolidation theory. This suggests that REM sleep and dreaming play a crucial role in processing and consolidating your memories. During the day, your brain takes in an enormous amount of information. During sleep, it sorts through this information, deciding what to keep, what to discard, and how to connect new information to existing knowledge. REM sleep seems to be particularly important for emotional memories and for making creative connections between different pieces of information. So, we talked about neuroscientist Matthew Walker in his book, Why We Sleep, where he describes REM sleep as a kind of overnight therapy. During REM sleep, the brain replays emotional experiences. But in a neurochemical environment where norepinephrine, the stress chemical, is absent, this allows the brain to process the emotional content of an experience without the full physiological stress response. Over time, this process can reduce the emotional charge of difficult memories, helping us to learn from our experiences without being continuously traumatized by them. This is also why sleep deprivation is so damaging to mental health. When we don't get enough REM sleep, we lose this nightly emotional processing. Difficult emotions don't get properly processed, and we carry them into the next day and the day after that. This theory offers a fascinating evolutionary perspective. Ravanswo argues that dreaming is an ancient biological defense mechanism. For our ancestors, the world was a genuinely dangerous place. There were predators and hostile tribes and environmental hazards, and threats were everywhere. So this theory, the threat simulation theory, suggests that the brain evolved dreaming as a kind of virtual reality training simulator, a safe place to practice responding to threats without any real-world consequences. So think about it. How many of your dreams involve being chased or falling or being in danger or facing some kind of threat? For most people, the answer is quite a few. According to the threat simulation theory, this isn't a coincidence. Your brain is running fire drills It's practicing the fear response, the escape response, the problem-solving response, so that if you ever face a similar situation in real life, you're better prepared. This theory also offers an interesting explanation for why children have more nightmares than adults. Children are in a critical period of brain development, learning to navigate a world that is genuinely new and sometimes frightening to them. Their brains may be running more threat simulations as they build up their repertoire of responses. Then there's the creative incubation theory. This theory is perhaps the most romantic of the dream theories. It suggests that the bizarre, unconstrained nature of dream thinking, precisely because the logical prefrontal cortex is offline, allows the brain to make creative connections that it would never make in its rational waking state. This free association of dream thinking, the way it combines unrelated ideas, might be a powerful engine for creativity and problem solving. And we do find that a lot of times if we have a problem at night, we go to sleep on it, we wake up and the problem has been solved, almost like magic in our sleep. There are famous historical examples of this. There is a chemist named August Kukuli, and he reportedly discovered the ring structure of benzene after dreaming of a snake eating its own tail. Paul McCartney has said that the melody for his so popular song, Yesterday, came to him in a dream. Many writers, artists, and scientists have reported that their most creative insights came from the dream state, the hypnagogic state, that twilight zone that we experience between waking and sleep. The author of the Twilight series said that the first idea for that series of books that she wrote on the vampires came to her in a dream. So, before we wrap up, I want to touch on two special categories of dreaming that illuminate the science in particularly vivid ways. Those are called nightmares or lucid dreams. So nightmares are, in a sense, the dreaming brain's threat simulation system in overdrive. They are most common in people experiencing high levels of stress, anxiety, or trauma. In people with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, nightmares can be particularly severe and persistent, often replaying actual traumatic events with terrifying realism. This is thought to reflect a failure of the normal emotional processing function of REM sleep. Instead of the brain successfully processing and diffusing the emotional charge of the traumatic memory, the nightmare keeps replaying it, unable to complete the processing cycle. Now, the amygdala is our emotional command center, and it is thought to be essentially hyperactive during PTSD nightmares, flooding the brain with fear signals that overwhelm the normal regulatory mechanisms. This is why treating nightmares as an important part of treating PTSD is proving effective, and why therapies that specifically target dream content, such as image rehearsal therapy, can be remarkably effective. Now, the next thing after nightmares is what's called lucid dreaming. So this is, on the other hand, one of the most fascinating phenomena in all of sleep science. A lucid dream, and I love these because I've experienced them. A lucid dream is a dream in which you become aware that you are dreaming. Have any of you ever done that? You realize that while asleep, that the world around you is a creation of your own mind, and in many cases, this awareness allows you to exert some degree of control over the dream. Maybe I like that so well because I'm a controlling person. I hope I'm not too controlling, but I do like my lucid dreams. What makes lucid dreaming so scientifically interesting is what happens in the brain when it occurs. Remember how we said that the prefrontal cortex, our reality testing CEO, goes offline during REM sleep? Well, during a lucid dream, the prefrontal cortex partially reactivates. The dreamer regains some capacity for rational thought and self-awareness, even while remaining in the dream state. This is a remarkable demonstration of the relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the experience of dreaming. When the prefrontal cortex is fully offline, we are completely immersed in the dream, accepting its reality without question. When it partially comes back online, we gain the ability to recognize the dream for what it is. What do we take away from all this? What does the science of the dreaming brain mean for our daily life? First of all, it means that sleep is not optional. I know we live in a culture that often glorifies busyness and treats sleep as a luxury, but the science is unambiguous. REM sleep is essential for emotional health, memory, creativity, and psychological resilience. When you sacrifice sleep, you're not just feeling tired, you are depriving your brain of its nightly maintenance cycle. You are going without the overnight therapy that helps you process your emotions. You're missing the memory consolidation that helps you learn and retain information. As a teacher, this is something I feel very strongly about. I have seen the difference between students who are well rested and students who are chronically sleep deprived. It shows up in their ability to concentrate, to retain information, to manage their emotions, and to think creatively. Sleep is not a passive state. It is an essential, active part of learning. Second, the science of dreaming invites us to approach our dreams with curiosity rather than dismissal. You don't need to believe that every dream is a coded message from your unconscious, but you can recognize that your dreams are a window into your emotional life. The themes that recur in your dreams, the anxieties, the longings, the fears, often reflect the emotional concerns that are most alive to you. Paying attention to your dreams can be a form of emotional self-awareness. So let me share this with you. I had a recurring dream that I had lost my purse. I never carry much cash, but to think about losing my credit card, my driver's license, or passport made this a very upsetting dream. Then, one day, it happened. My husband and I had attended a maple syrup festival in New Hampshire, many miles from where we were staying. On the way home in the car, I noticed that I didn't have my purse. I was panic-stricken. Fortunately, we remembered a restaurant where we had stopped along the way, and we called them. They had the purse. They were lovely. They were able to retrieve it. The most interesting thing for me was that the recurring dreams about losing my purse stopped. The worst had happened and was easily resolved. So, in conclusion, the next time you wake up from a dream that left you bewildered, frightened, or simply amazed, take a moment to appreciate what just happened. Your brain spent the night performing one of its most complex and vital functions. It shut down its logic centers, cranked up its emotional and creative engines, and entered a state of beautifully controlled insanity that helped you process your emotions, consolidate your memories, and perhaps even rehearse for the challenges ahead. The dreaming brain is not broken. It's not malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, and it has been doing it for as long as human beings have slept under the stars. Now here's your call to action for this week. I'd like to encourage you to keep a dream journal. Keep a notebook and a pen on your bedside table. The moment you wake up, before you check your phone, before you get out of bed, write down whatever you remember from your dreams, even fragments, even just a feeling or an image. Do this for 1 week, then look back at what you've written. I think you'll be surprised by the patterns you find and by what your dreaming brain has been trying to tell you. And I'd love to hear what you discover. What are your most reoccurring dreams? Have you ever had a lucid dream? Has a dream ever helped you solve a problem or process a difficult situation or emotion? Don't forget to share your stories and thoughts with us on our social media channels. You can find references for today's podcast at www.vickidraeger.com. Now, until next week, thank you for joining me on this episode of Blossoming Brains. And don't forget to keep learning, keep growing, and keep blossoming. Thank you.